Hey everyone, and welcome to episode 2 of Open Discourse. A little bit of technical difficulties and a rough start here, but we got it going. So again, my name is Nick Coppage, and today we have our first guest host. So I'll have Dylan introduce her.
Hi, this is Dylan Meyer. I'm going to introduce my cousin, Cali Witte. Cali, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Like you said, my name's Cali. I'm 23. Political status is right in the middle. Socially more liberal, economically more conservative. I just graduated from college in May. I have an accounting degree. One of my favorite hobbies is to debate Nick here. So I am.
We do have some pretty good debates that last into the wee hours of the morning. We're going to talk about religion today, so maybe just give us a quick background of your religious experience and beliefs.
So I grew up Catholic. I went to Catholic school from kindergarten to 12th grade, so all the way up. My family, not my immediate family, but my extended family is super Catholic. My great-grandma was very, very religious, and that kind of trickled down. So now I would say I'm more of a believer in God, but not necessarily specifically designated to one particular religion.
So me and Cali have very similar backgrounds, but just a little bit different. I grew up in the Catholic Church as well, but I did not go to Catholic school. I just went to public school, and then I went to a thing called PSR, which is kind of like a class for kids who are Catholic but they don't go to Catholic school, and it teaches you certain traditions and just teaches you the history of the Catholic religion, teaches you how to be a Catholic.
What about you, Nick?
Grew up in a Christian household. My parents were raised Baptist, so a lot of Baptist background. We started off in the Baptist church when I was a wee child, but growing up, I was more in the non-denominational side of Christianity, went to a few different churches. And then in high school, or I guess more so college, didn't have a lot of time to go to church, so I spent a lot of time reading the Bible by myself and just kind of self-searching and educating myself. But yeah, definitely different than your guys's. I mean, in comparison, Protestant versus Catholic.
And I guess I didn't really say what my current religious stance was, but I would say that I believe in God, but maybe not the version of God that certain people believe in. And I don't follow a particular religion. I'm more open with my religious views.
And like I said in the first episode, I would just call myself Christian, a Christ follower. I hate any kind of identities when you talk about things like religion or politics. They just I feel like people associate negative connotations with different terms. Like you hear Republican and an image comes to mind. So I try to stay away from that as much as I can, but I do hold to the title of Christian or Christ follower.
I would say one thing important about you too is your belief in the Bible. Like you're a Noah really built an ark type of guy,
right?
And I am not, and I would say that's our biggest difference in religion. What about you? How do you feel about Bible or religious text?
I'm kind of somewhere in between both of you. I feel like it was written a very, very long time ago, and it's changed hands multiple times, and it's been translated from religion to religion. And I think that some people take it for its literal word, and then some people kind of use it as a template to loosely live their life, or they take the language of the text and they kind of apply it to themselves in certain ways. So there are really two different trains of thought on the Bible. It's taking it word for word, or just like looking at the stories and taking out kind of what you want from it or your perception of it.
So would you say you use the Bible to kind of use them as stories to help guide you in decisions, but don't necessarily take them as truth?
I would say that I kind of use them as stories to guide me, or maybe if I'm looking at a specific story, it's like how 100% sure are we that that's exactly how something happened?
See, I
don't know.
I think the Bible, in my opinion and how I read any kind of religious text, is more as a use for making an example out of something. like how you should treat things, and this is kind of a parable, like on
Right.
how it was used.
Kind of like a code of ethics, like in a certain way. Like basically, it's you believe that it's kind of stories that should make you live your life a certain way.
Like, I think that the things that happened in the Bible were extremes used to make a point. Nick, you would say that.
Right. I mean, I look at it as a history book for parts of it. You know, there's like the creation of Earth and different global events that happened, and I would hold that as it happened in that way, the way it's depicted in the text, and there's no mythology to it or fiction to it. And while you can pull, I would say you can pull practical applications or ethical applications, they were still actual events. Like I guess like how maybe some people, or not some people, but like when you read in a history book the Holocaust, and some people can pull moral or ethical things out of that. Like, okay, what went wrong here? The Bible is the same for me, as I read that as a 100% historical event that happened. There are some moral, ethical applications, but at the same time, it's a story, but it's a real story. I don't know.
Is that something that you grew up with, or is that like something that you've come to?
Like,
as
has
you've
that
gotten
always
older?
has that always been your opinion, or is it something you've developed later in life, or did you just
It's-
kind of realize it now?
It was raised. I was raised to understand it that way. So I mean, yeah, growing up, I always viewed it that way. I would say, doing my own research and investigations and own reading of the Bible solidified that. But yeah, I was definitely raised that way. But solidified later in life to still believe that. So to kind of recap, I guess I would say that most of the beliefs that I held religiously, anyways, as a kid, they might have changed in a stronger way. Like they're stronger now, but I wouldn't say that I have changed the way that I view the Bible and religion since I was a kid. What about you, Callie? Is your childhood experiences different than what you believe today?
I mean, majorly, just because I was raised, like I said, in Catholic school. So I went to church 3 times a week, during school hours. So you kind of get that ingrained into you. And I didn't really start doing my own research until I was probably in high school, or really discovering what my beliefs are until then. As a kid, though, like you go through, especially in Catholicism, you go through all of these rites of passage, like First Communion, Confirmation, Reconciliation, and all those are like major events, I guess, in a Catholic's life. So when I was younger, I would say I was pretty religious, and I thought that was cool to get to do and follow those things, especially like things the church taught, like gay marriage, abortion. It was all like, that's how it should be in my head. And it wasn't until high school when I really started like doing my own research and figuring out what I actually thought, and versus, what my Catholicism taught me.
So do you think it was like one specific thing that made you start to question things or change your point of view, or do you think it was more of like a age thing, like you were just getting older and starting to form your own opinions? Or what do you think caused you to start to think about that?
I would say neither of those. I think, if anything, it was just exposure. Like, I went to school with 26 people from kindergarten through 8th grade, and those were the only people I knew. I played softball, so I had like a few friends outside of that, but other than that, that was who I knew. When I got to high school, I started to meet new people. When I was like 16, I got a job, I met other people, and I think just meeting people who have different experiences than you do really allows you to shape your opinion about things.
It just made you a more open person.
Yeah, and it made me want to kind of be like, okay, is this actually true? Do I go back and do my own research and kind of change my mind about a lot of things?
Right.
Especially, I would say especially around like 16, 17 is when I really started to develop my own opinions, I guess.
I would say that I kind of experienced something similar, where whenever I moved away to college, like I met a lot of people who were different religions, or they weren't religious at all, or whatever it may be, and I got to know them, and what I learned was like there are good people that are every religion, and it's kind of like they believe their particular religion to be the truth and to be exactly right. And the thing that I kept thinking was everybody, or most people, have a religion, and it's similar in certain ways to other people's religions, but it's different at the same time. And my thought was, okay, well, if there's all these different religions, then maybe, I understand that religion plays an important part of somebody's life, but I think that maybe the particular religion didn't make the difference. It was more or less the values that they pulled from the religion. I don't know, Nick, how do you feel about that? Because I know you believe in, you would say that you're Christian, so how do you feel about people of other faiths like Muslim or Jewish or something like that? Like, how do you perceive their religion?
As like true or false,
well,
or
not necessarily true or false, but like, do you think that there's like one that's right, or do you think that maybe all of them are right in a certain way, or like how? I don't know. Just what are your feelings on that?
Yeah, so this is something I know, Cali, you and I have talked about before. Is there multiple ways? And do you mean? I guess there's two ways to look at it. There's a right way to live like your earthly life, and then we kind of haven't gotten into it yet. But like, or do you mean the afterlife? Like,
I don't mean like, does a person of another religion necessarily not get to go to heaven, or do they go to hell because of their religion? I mean like. Well, how accepting or open are you to other
Jewish people,
religions?
for example, don't believe that Christ was our savior. So that's like the main basis of your religion. So how do you feel about that?
I mean, to me it makes sense. Dylan, you were mentioning that a lot of them are similar and have kind of reoccurring themes. And I think as like humanity, regardless of, maybe someone's unsure of like what's specifically right, but like regardless of what the right answer is, we all originated from the same. So whether it's the Muslim, the Jew, or the Christian, or the Hindu who is right, we've all came from that same. We might believe different things, but one of us has to be right, I feel like, because we all are in the same world together. So if like the reincarnation picture is what's right, then that's what's right for me. Like that's what I'm experiencing too, even if that's not what I believe it to be. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I guess I'm not that I'm not open to like hearing other views. I think it's important to talk about other views. I would still argue that my view is the correct, worldview of what really happened and why we're really here. I think it's important to know about the other worldviews and to be open to that. I've always thought that if your religious view is only valid if it's been ingrained in you since you've been a child, and if you get exposed to a different view, that it crumbles, then it's probably not a very good religious view to hold or belief about the world to hold. And you need to do, the research and the exposure to other beliefs to kind of, check your beliefs and see, is what you're believing the right thing.
See, I struggle with that though, because if you say other views, and that usually means like specific religions, but I don't really identify with one. I think, I don't know, in my opinion, organized religion is a waste of time. Like, I don't find value in church. It seems to be more of a hindrance than anything else. I have found value in like retreats. Like in high school, we had to do retreats, and I actually ended up leading one because it impacted me so much. But I don't see God as something that has to, if you don't go to church on Sunday, then you're going to hell type of thing,
Right. So would you consider yourself an agnostic?
I would, that's a pretty good label. I mean, yeah.
Because you mentioned like.
I do believe in God, but I don't believe in organized religion. So.
Okay, but at the same time, like, then that would be your belief. Like, whereas I might call myself Christian, and this man might call himself a Jew or a Muslim, you would be an agnostic. Like, you still fit into a category.
So do you feel like religion has a purpose though? Because like in a certain way, it does teach people moral values. Like they're not necessarily picking and choosing, but they're kind of following, whether it be Catholic or Protestant or whatever, they're kind of following a code of ethics in a way. Do you think that religion has a purpose, and do you think that is its purpose?
I think that some people, that if they didn't have religion in their life, they would be lost. It's what they turn to when they don't know what to do. Like a lot of people can't problem solve for themselves, so they go to this community, and that helps them, which is fine. That's great. My only issue with that is when people think they're better than other people, or also people that claim to be a certain faith and then don't abide by half the rules. They pick and choose what they want.
See, and here's the thing. I mean, I think everyone has flaws. So, whenever you try to adhere yourself to a certain community, it's like you feel like you have to uphold all those values, and it's like, I don't think anybody can be perfect, but at the same time, along the lines like you were saying, I feel like I know a lot of people that say they're a certain religion, but yet at the same time, they're rude people who are just, like, not nice to other people.
See,
And it's
I
like,
get that people have flaws. Like, I don't expect anyone to be perfect, but, like, take a big issue. Like, I'm trying to think about something other than gay marriage or abortion, but those are usually the two big ones. Say you're a Catholic, but you're like, oh, I'm a Catholic, but I believe in gay marriage. Like, what's the point in having those fundamental things that are, supposed to be true, and you're not going to follow them?
So you're saying that if you are claiming to be Catholic, you should follow everything
follow
that
the
Catholicism says to the T.
And
so you're
which
saying
I
that
think most religions are flawed.
So you're saying that you shouldn't really be able to pick and choose the certain ideas you want to follow from a particular
because
religion.
then you're not following a particular religion. You're picking and choosing whatever you want,
Cali,
which is fine. But don't call yourself a Catholic if you're not going to be a Catholic type of thing.
Would it surprise you, Cali, for me to say that I hate religion?
Yeah, thoroughly.
Thoroughly? Okay. So, for me, like I was talking with labels, religion is another label that, like, you hear someone say, like, oh, they're super religious. And it's like, what does that even mean? Because someone who's a super religious Muslim is acting and behaving and believing differently than a super religious Catholic. So it's very, like, personal. It doesn't mean a lot to say someone's religious, because if a non-Catholic or a Catholic can consider themselves religious, but they would probably view the other as non-religious.
Well, and a lot of people will say spiritual.
Right, spiritual. But for me, I think when you look at religion as simply an ethics, like, a guide, or how should I behave...
Is that not what it is for most people?
I think that is what it is for most people. I think that, I would say, the vast majority. I think, though, not Christianity, and not to just, like, lecture on my own religion, but that is an aspect of it, but it comes after. The heart of Christianity is that men are flawed, like, we acknowledge that up front, and that because of our flaws, we are separated from God who made us, and then therefore we are in need of a Savior, Jesus Christ. So for me, religion isn't abiding by laws as much as it's about salvation and eternal damnation versus, going to heaven and being with God.
Not so much abiding by laws, but you're a very strict Bible follower, or, okay, maybe that's the wrong way to put it, but you read the Bible.
So,
like, I would say you're probably the most familiar person with the Bible that I know.
Legalism is believing that, you're justified through your works. I think I think most religions, touch on the afterlife, and that is a lot of it. And I think people get lost in the legalism, which is following the rules that might be in that religion, like First Communion, or I don't even know what the sacrament is, but the sacrament. And for the heart and true Christianity, like, that's not what it is.
And I agree with you. And I think that the best way to get to whatever that is, whatever heaven is to just be a good person and do the best you can. But so many people that follow religion just poo-poo you if you don't follow one certain thing, or if you if you're being a perfectly good person, but there's one you don't go to church on Sundays,
the Christian,
you're going to hell.
The Christian viewpoint, and it's not always expressed this way, so it's hard to, like, change and undo what's been done.
Well, and what is taught versus what is practiced is different.
Right, but the heart of Christianity, like I said, when you read the Bible and really dive into what Christianity is, it's not follow these rules to get into heaven and be a good person. It's you are a terrible person and you are incapable of earning your way to heaven. So God, out of his love for humanity, provided a way, again, Jesus Christ, and then you accept Jesus Christ as Savior, and when you get into so now be a good person, it's after the fact. It's, I accept what Christ did for me on the cross, so now I go and show Christ's love to other people. And I'm not perfect in that. And it's not even... I think to strive for perfection is a maddening thing because we already know we're incapable of doing that. So for me personally, wouldn't even say I strive to then go live the perfect Christ-like
You're
life.
also very different than most people, though. Like, I obviously know you very personally, and very few people actually you're not very judgmental for the most part about most things. And I would say that most people that claim to be Christian are the opposite of that. And that's where I take issue with it, not necessarily with what it teaches, but how people interpret it and act.
I would agree, and I would just call that the misuse of Christianity. Like, that's not what it was intended. Because we're imperfect human beings, we have found a way to corrupt it and take what was supposed to be the ultimate good and use it for evil.
Cali, earlier he said that, people are imperfect or flawed, or I don't really know the vernacular or how you said it, but I feel like your opinion, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that we aren't really flawed as much. So I think that, do you perceive those certain like physical urges or things like that to be a sin, or do you consider that just to be a natural part of who somebody is?
I don't know what you
Like,
mean. Like physical urges.
Like,
being
I
a
feel
sin.
like there are certain things that religion represses when it comes to, like, sexuality.
Yeah, I think that's ridiculous.
And I feel like your perception is that those things aren't actually wrong, and that they are just natural things that are
I mean, if God
happen to
created us to be human and those are our human
urges and needs.
Yeah, then why is that so repressed?
And that's what I thought your opinion was, and I just wanted to see if that was how you felt.
I agree.
So then, Callie, are you saying that there's no moral aspect to sexuality?
In my personal opinion, no. I think that, as long as you're doing things for the right reasons, then there shouldn't be anything else pushing that. If that makes sense.
So you're saying, like, no, you can't be immoral with your sexual urges?
No. If you're doing things for the wrong reasons, like if it's only for self-validation or something like that, then I would say that's not healthy, but I don't think morally it's wrong.
So words like premarital sex, not a moral issue for you, or
No.
not morally wrong for you.
No.
Gay marriage, not morally wrong.
Definitely not.
What about polygamy, multiple wives?
I think that if everybody in said relationship is comfortable with it, it's been discussed, you have certain boundaries, then it's fine. If that's what you want to do what you want to do. Who am I to say that?
Okay, so
are you saying like
adultery.
an open marriage? Like two people who are married and then they have an open relationship with other people? Or are you saying polygamy as in like one guy or one woman and multiple husbands or multiple wives?
Yeah, either one.
So either one.
Either one you think, as long as everyone's a consenting individual and is aware of the situation.
And it's not
still
cheating.
not necessarily
cheating is a different
immoral.
story. Cheating's a different story. Yeah.
And would you use the word immoral or like you're a shitty person?
Both.
So,
like
morality
it's not
is
wrong.
kind of a broad.
Like what you're saying is it's not wrong like legally or under
It's
a
not
certain.
no, it's not wrong.
But
legally.
it's just you shouldn't do it.
Although I guess whenever it comes to divorce, that is a legal grounds for divorce that people use a lot. Is cheating. But cheating is when people don't know about things, like say Dylan, you have a girlfriend and your girlfriend's like, look, I want to hook up with this guy, and you're like, I'm cool with that, and you really are cool with that, you're not just saying you're cool with it, then what's wrong with that?
I guess nothing's wrong with that if you're okay with it, but are you saying that you think certain religions like that's absolutely 100% not okay, and if you do it you're breaking some type of rule within the religion?
I would say most religions say that.
I mean, you can use me as an example. My religious beliefs would say that was an immoral thing to do. So where does that put me, Callie? Am I wrong in my beliefs, or to think that you're immoral for having multiple wives?
No, I wouldn't say, wrong in your beliefs. See, I'm like a do what you want to do kind of person. So if that's what you feel your relationship should be, then that's what your relationship should be. If, the other person feels that they want to go, like, okay, you're engaged to my sister, for example. Say my sister wanted to go also have another boyfriend, but you're not okay with that, she can't just go do that because she thinks it's fine. I think it needs to be a conversation between two people, and two people need to work things out together. There should be a mutual agreement there, or that relationship's not going to work.
So I think I maybe want to bring up the topic of morality then. What is your opinion on human nature in morality in general? Do you think that there's a state
like
of
human nature versus morality type of thing?
more like together, like just in your decisions, is there inherently something moral to how a person lives their life? Like I would say I think that in almost 99% of every action you do, it can either be of moral or immoral standing. But it sounds like you're saying that as long as it's something that you are personally okay with, then you're not necessarily in a state of immorality.
I would say everybody's sets of morals are different. Like what's moral to you might not be moral to me, or vice versa.
So she's saying that she doesn't find her code of ethics or the rules that she lives her life in a certain religion. You would say that you would define the rules of your own morality for yourself.
Right,
You would
which
choose
is not
your boundaries.
necessarily good. That there's nothing in particular to go off of.
So, whenever you feel wronged then by someone else, is that not then you using your morality and putting that on them? Like in a situation where you're in a relationship and they are deciding their own morals and don't see a problem with being with another person, so they sleep with them. You would probably, I think, would feel wronged, like you were cheated on.
I would feel wronged, and that means that I'm not ready to, or I wouldn't want to be in a relationship with that type of person. So, like, personally, I could never be in a relationship with multiple other people or anything like that. There's no way I could ever do that. So I know the type of people that I need to be around.
So you're saying that you wouldn't want to be in an open relationship. You just want people to be able to have an open relationship,
if they want to,
and they should have the right to.
And there should be no religious thing or anything like that saying, well, you're wrong and you're right, when two people, or when however many people are agreeing on something.
I just feel like to say that someone has wronged you, and it's not even necessarily in a sexual way. If someone were to cheat in a card game, or take something that's yours and they can justify it, but you would view them and not analyzing yourself, but them as
stealing.
having wrong.
So
stealing
I have
could be an example.
My groceries in my car, but a starving kid comes up and steals them. What's
Right.
the morality in that?
Right.
Yeah, okay, I get what you're saying. And that's a really hard question to answer. I think that ethics classes in universities across the country try and answer that question every semester. It's on the basis of religion. I mean, most religions are going to have an exact set of rules on that. Like the Bible, the 10 Commandments are, don't steal. Like that's blanket rule right there.
So, but would you say it was you in this example, starving kid steals your watermelon, and you hold in your own morality stealing as immoral or a wrong thing to do. So if you were
now that would be situational for me. If I knew that it was a starving kid and they came up and stole my watermelon, I wouldn't even be mad.
I think that you see things more in shades of gray than you do in black
Absolutely.
and white. And I think what you're saying is that you would look at everything on a situation basis and decide from your own point of view how you really wanted to perceive that situation.
Okay, so what about you guys? If it was your watermelon and a starving kid came up and stole your watermelon, what would your view of that be?
See, this is where it gets hard, and every time we discuss, I try to find an example that puts you in the situation that I want you to be in. But because I mean, if for me and I knew the circumstances, this is a starving child and he's taking my watermelon, I'd probably give him my bag of frosted donuts and the 2 liter of Coke too. But I guess I'm trying to put you in a situation where you do feel like you were wronged, but this person can. Through what you said of deciding your own morals, justify their actions to themselves. Why does it have
to be black and white, though?
It's not. I guess it's not so much about a matter of black and white for me, as much as it's kind of like what I was saying with people's religions. Regardless of whether it's the Muslim is right and Allah is the supreme being, or if it's the Jew and it's Yahweh, or the Christian and God, we all came from the same. So I feel like we're all in the same universe, like living in the same universe together. So if what's right for you is right for you, then it has to be the same for me. We can't live and make our own code of ethics, because then it could essentially justify anything.
I think what she's saying, though, is that there's a certain boundary that you live within. I mean, clearly you're not going to go around killing people and saying, oh, well,
Right,
my
but he's
moral code
saying
says
if you're
can't.
not following a religion, then who's to say that killing's not wrong?
Right, and it's because
I know I'm giving a severe example.
No, I mean
but
that severe example is almost perfect, because you should, by what Callie is saying, you should be able to someone should be able to justify murder if it's really in their hands.
Okay, so I think that we're kind of getting into a certain issue where we're taking law into consideration, and I think that while you necessarily can change your code of ethics, you can't really go outside of the law within the, or do you, or, well, I mean, I understand what you're saying, because there's certain laws I don't think should be laws.
Right.
Right, so.
So law is a construct of humans, not of any moral being. I mean, there's all kinds of laws out there that are dumb, in my opinion.
Well, I was gonna say, do you pick and choose certain laws that you follow?
Yeah.
That you don't follow?
Absolutely.
Because I feel like.
Do I run stop signs all the time?
I feel like everybody does. Everyone's jaywalked at one point, which
Right.
is illegal, but you do it anyway.
That is one of my core arguments for an existence of.
Of something higher.
Of something higher at the bare minimum, and then I would even take it a step further. A being that's perfect in and of itself is 100% moral, because for us to even have a measurement system, to even think in like our minds like, oh, this is immoral, regardless of whether you disagree on something, we will all probably find something that we think is immoral. Like, where is that coming from?
See, and I think my morality was shaped a lot by my religious upbringing too. You know, like I can feel guilt, the Catholic guilt, as they say. I feel guilt about all sorts of things that I think to myself, why am I feeling guilt about this? You know, so I think that that's shaped a lot by how I grew up. It's hard to navigate though, because since I don't follow something particular, it is hard to navigate. I can't say that I'm definitively right about any of what I believe. But that doesn't mean I'm not going to continue to try and figure it out, or that I'm going to adhere to one specific thing.
So, Callie, I guess my question for you about morality would be, so let's say you encounter a certain situation that makes you feel uncomfortable and you're not sure exactly how you should think about it. Do you just kind of analyze the situation and go, I should be okay with this and I should get over it and that's socially okay? Or do you sometimes go, okay, this isn't for me? Like, I shouldn't do this.
I think more often I have a knee-jerk reaction to something that, like, is ingrained in me from my childhood. And then I think, and I'm like, wait a second, why do I think that way? And go back through and try and figure out why I'm having that reaction. And then try and think through it as who I am as a person now. And try and think of, I guess, how I feel about it.
So you
morally.
just kind of have a knee-jerk reaction to it based on your old values, and then you really analyze it and you think about it.
Well, and something's ingrained in you from, for however many grades of school we go through, that many years in a row, every religion class, every year, you automatically think a certain way, and it takes, like, reshaping to try and figure out what you actually believe, in my opinion.
I think it takes just meeting new people. Just like being in a new place, meeting a new group of people, and realizing how different everybody is, that really kind of shapes your opinion on certain things.
Even just reading or listening to people from around the world or with different upbringings, I think has shaped me a lot. I listen to a lot of podcasts now with, people from all over the place and people that have guests from all over the world. And I think that really helps me try and navigate my own reactions to things.
So I think it's like healthy to be able to do that, to experience a situation or make a knee-jerk moral judgment on something, and then to analyze, okay, wait, hold on, like, is this something that's actually do I actually believe it's wrong, or was this just my upbringing and how I was raised? And I think it was kind of went through a period there where it was kind of suppressed to think, for yourself. I had this conversation with my parents a lot. And then there's nothing wrong with, like, the indoctrination and your parents and, like, how you were maybe raised religiously or morally or socially. because as a kid you have nothing to go off of. So I don't think that parents shouldn't be, like when you turn 18, the first thing you probably voted for, or the first way you probably voted, was how your parents voted. Maybe not, depends on how quickly you matured. But I think it's important to analyze yourself and your beliefs, and I think it's cool that you're able to do that. Dylan, I know you wanted to talk about the afterlife, so let's dive in there.
Yeah, I think a lot of people find religion because of the afterlife, because of dying. I think there are a lot of people that are afraid.
And it's an answer.
Yeah, and I think they just want an answer. I think that the fear of the unknown is kind of the thing that draws some people to religion. Probably not a lot, but it's it's a fear of not knowing. And every religion has a slightly different perspective on what happens whenever you cross over to the other side.
I would say this is actually a major differing point in a lot of religions, like between reincarnation, heaven and hell. I know as Catholics we grew up at least believing in purgatory. I don't know, is that a thing?
Yeah, that's a. I mean, is that that's like a waiting room, right? Is how
Basically,
I've heard it.
But
yeah. It's
see-
like you stay there until you're good enough to get to heaven.
I was gonna say, I'm honestly not sure, but is it possible to just go straight to heaven, and like under the Catholic religion? So like there are
Yeah.
certain people that don't go to purgatory at
I mean,
all.
like saints. People
So
who
you
are
literally
known as
just
the
go
saints,
straight
they
to
definitely
heaven?
go straight to heaven, yeah.
So do you? That's interesting. I never.
Oh,
really
there's
thought
so
about
many
that.
things we could talk about, like with saints and stuff. But we'll stick with afterlife.
Do either of you believe in a particular afterlife? Like, do you have something that this is definitely what's happening whenever I die?
I would say so, yes.
What do you go ahead and you go first?
say
What do you
mine?
think? Yeah.
First, I'll say that I'm pretty sure purgatory is a Catholic belief.
Mm-hmm.
I have not encountered it in my own Protestant upbringing. There's lots of variations of Protestantism and Christianity, so there might be like whether Lutheran or Mormons. I'm not quite sure who might have a similar view. But for me, it's the heaven and the hell kind of concept. There's, I think some people, and as a child, I kind of viewed that vertically, if that made sense. Like heaven was up and hell was down.
I still view it like that.
But for me now, my understanding is heaven is with God in his entirety, and hell is, I can't imagine this place, but a place where God isn't, like, at all. There's, like, everything good about God, like, non-existent. I guess, like, the dark side of, like, the moon would be an example. Like,
I mean, do you believe in the whole Satan got kicked out of heaven and...
Right. Yeah, so my understanding and belief is that Satan is an angel, and demons are actually angels, and that Satan rebelled, whether that was pre-earth or whatever, I'm not quite sure on the timing, but Satan rebelled and tried to put himself as greater than God, and he has since been cast out of heaven, and he took a third of the angel dominion with him, and those are the demons. And I get that, I found, those references are actually in the Bible where it talks about that. The wording's kind of tricky, and it's kind of weird language, but that's where that belief comes from, is things I've read directly in the Bible.
That makes sense. What about you, Dylan? Do you have a particular thing that you think happens, or...
I would say that I'm kind of unsure. I don't really know. I think that one thing is for sure is that your spirit is an actual thing, and I think that your spirit rids your physical body and it goes somewhere. Now, whether you call it heaven or you call it, whatever you want, I think that your spirit does leave your physical form and go to a different place. Now, whether or not it goes to a different place and it's with the Creator and the other spirits that you encountered in your physical life, I'm not really sure, or whether or not it's a place that you go and then you maybe go back to a different life form. I'm not really entirely sure. But.
What about you, Callie?
I don't really know. In all honesty, I think we probably just get buried in the ground and we stay there. But but on the other hand, I do believe in spirits. I don't know that I believe in heaven and hell, because as far as God goes, what kind of God lets you end up in hell if he really loves you? But I have had a couple of personal experiences with spirits. Not bad ones. I've never had, like, bad, ill-willed spirits. But when my grandpa died, my little sister was a baby. She was like 2. And she would see him. And honestly, that's one of the only things that really makes me believe in something higher. It's like one of the major experiences in my life when I would see her talk to him or say, "Oh, he's right there. He's sitting right next to us." That convinced me otherwise, I guess I should say.
So I guess that kind of brings up maybe like there's the belief or disbelief in an afterlife, and then also the belief and disbelief in like the spiritual world and how interconnected it is with this world. Because for me, I think that the only spiritual beings that have that ability or that freedom to kind of cross between like what's the afterlife and this current life would be angels, so demons and angels. And not to like discount things that Chloe was seeing, I would maybe argue that rather than your grandpa's actual spirit, I would think maybe an angel was could be visiting her and comforting her, and in a way that she understood and expressed then out loud as grandpa.
Right, as a child. Mm-hmm.
Right, and I very well like that. I do think is a possibility, but people like talk about like. People having unfinished business. Like I know my older sister, I love her, but she is really big into like humans as spirits, and for me that's just like I don't think your spirit has that power. I think you get called to either back to the creator or.
So what about like possessions and things like that?
Possessions,
that's demons.
That would be
Necessarily a
demons,
human
right?
person.
And
Okay.
that's it's a human.
But you
who
do
is
believe that spirits and demons can be
on this earth. 100%. And like I said, a little bit of background for people. My self-searching consisted of reading the Bible in its entirety, and I haven't quite finished that project yet. But you see examples in the Bible of angels and demons showing themselves to humans and contacting humans and talking directly to humans. And sometimes they have angelic appearances, and sometimes they're angels that look like men and women. So that's what whenever the elderly a lot of times have experiences with maybe someone who's dead and that's coming back, and so do children. It seems like the two people who are like the closest on the spectrum of
that's interesting.
the non-earthly life. But I would totally relate that to angelic beings, whether they're demons or holy angels.
So what about people that are like on the cusp of death that's, will say that they have traveled to the spiritual world and back, stuff like that?
And come back.
Or that they have seen God or heard God or...
Yeah, I don't know. I know that scientifically and medically there's kind of this brain phenomenon, and I forget specifically what it's called.
Is it dimethyltryptamine? Is it DMT?
Is that a med?
It's a molecule that your brain produces I thought at your birth and at your death, but I'm not entirely sure. And people who have taken synthesized forms of DMT or taking it via like a plant that has the DMT molecule, they experience a feeling of leaving their physical form and going to a different dimension or a different place and seeing some very strange things and coming back to their body after the molecules.
So we could write that off as science more than religion, probably.
Well, I would argue that science and God go hand in hand, and they're not enemies battling it out. But that's interesting. That's not what I was referencing. I think if I remember correctly, and it was like a video we were watching, but like the last things to go in your brain when you die is like the light receptors. So like the going into the light phenomenon is like literally
going
into the light. Like it's the brain can only pick up light at that point.
So you just see
they see a bright light because that's all they're able to make out, and then they're resuscitated and their brain resumes functions. So it's like I saw the light and then came back kind of thing.
Right.
Never heard of whatever the molecule is you talked about, but that's very interesting.
I feel like one important thing that we should cover before we kind of conclude the podcast is the fact that no matter what your religious belief is or how you feel, you should be open to everybody's opinion, and you should respect them. And, you know, just more important than anything else, be a kind person and be accepting of other people, and just be a more loving individual. And I think the world would be a better place if everybody felt that way.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Thanks for letting me be your first guest, guys.
Yeah, we enjoyed having you. So I think that pretty well wraps up episode 2. Hope you guys enjoyed maybe the contrast of views. That's kind of what we want this whole podcast to be about.
Just kind of as we're kind of coming to a conclusion here, we just wanted to say, you know, if you listened and you liked it, just give us some feedback at open.discourse@gmail.com. Just let us know, you know, future topics you want us to talk about, or any questions or concerns that you have. Just go ahead and feel free to send us an email. We'd love to get back to you.
We're also going to get a Twitter and an Instagram going, just in case, social media is a little easier for you to follow and respond to. So be on the lookout for that. Hopefully I'll have the information on Facebook and in the link or the description of this video on YouTube. Thank you for engaging in another episode of Open Discourse, and we hope to see you next week.